welcome back to Project Z Garage. My name is Ansar, my brother Al, and we have Zeus here. We're going to continue working on the ML350 today. In the last video, we took care of the rear suspension. Now, today, we are going to be working on the front suspension. If you saw before, it definitely, when we swapped out the Bilstein shocks in the back, it definitely raised the car up a little bit. Now, again, most likely that will settle after a little bit of driving. But I've been taking measurements before and after, so you guys can have an idea of what the car will look like. And you know, we'll probably do a review after everything is done and we've driven it for maybe a couple hundred miles and let you know how it feels. So let's get started. We got to get the car jacked up, we got to get these wheels off, and then we'll go from there. All right guys, we got the Mercedes jacked up, supported. We got the jack stands under it just to be safe. We've got a smaller jack under the whole front wheel assembly to take some weight off of the shock. And pretty much we have to go in here, and I believe from the directions we're gonna have to take this upper arm off. We're gonna have to take the sway bar end link off. We're gonna have to disassemble all of these clips here that are on the actual shock itself. It looks like it's just zip tied on, so that shouldn't be too bad. We might possibly need to remove the axle out of the front so that we can angle this out a little more. I did see in one of the other videos on YouTube they removed that so that they could get a little more room, but we're gonna go little by little and see how much we really need to take off to get this shock out. Also, there's 3 nuts on top, but there are in view. We don't have to take anything apart to get to them, so that's good. So I'm gonna set you guys up, and then we are gonna go at it and try to get this apart. Alright guys, so we got the shock out. It was a bit of a pain in the ass. We ended up pulling the axle out of the transfer case or differential up front here, and then it dropped down enough for us to get it out. Now this bolt, the bolt at the side there, or this one, I believe it took a 22 millimeter and the rest were 21 millimeter. It could have been that had a little bit of rust on it, but just so you guys can check, we also used a 13/16 also worked on the top and on that bolt for the sway bar end link, so that's good. And also for the top there, this was a pain getting out, but we got it out. Now Al's working on putting the spring compressor on it, because we will need to swap the tops on these over to the Bilstein shocks. It is like 100 degrees in this garage, maybe more. So we're working on it. If you want to know what the part number on this is, there you go. So those are for the front shocks. Whew. All right guys, so we've got it apart. It did pop a little bit, but we got it pretty well compressed. Al marked the side, that's the front, so that we can put it back onto the new shock. We cut the ribbon on it that was holding it down, and now we're gonna work on getting it back onto the shock. All right guys, we got the new springs, well no, the old springs on the new shocks. These are the Bilstein B6 performance shocks. As you can see, Al's holding it up. It was a pain getting it transferred one to the other. You really need some heavy duty spring compressors to get this thing down. I don't think if you have regular cheap ones are gonna get it compressed enough to get the bolt on. It was not easy. As you can see, the old one's pretty beat up. The new one is looking all nice and shiny. The last thing we need to do is we need to torque this top bolt down. What I'm gonna do is whatever specs that I have, I'll put into the description below, but I always suggest you guys to go and check your workshop manual for the correct torque specs for all these bolts. You know, every different models might have weird differences. One might be more, one might be less, so definitely check your workshop manuals. We're just working off of what Bilstein gave us for these shocks and this setup, and what we could find online for the 2010 ML350. Again guys, we are not professionals. I'm just giving you guys a look into how we did it, and hopefully this will help some of you guys out that are planning on tackling it yourself. Now that we have everything up and running, we're gonna have to torque this down. So let's go ahead and start doing that, and then trying to get it back in the car. All right guys, Al pushed up the new shock and spring setup. We put on the three 13mm nuts. It's a washer and a nut, so don't lose those washers. Make sure you put them back on. I've loosely tightened them just to hold them in place. And now Al's jacking up the bottom of the wheel assembly so that we can get it into place where we can put that big nut through. You want me to go up a little more? No. You're almost there. Pretty close.
A little bit?
I think you got it right there.
Go a little bit, please.
Okay.
Stop right there.
I think that other side needs to move a little bit.
Yeah, we gotta go this way.
Yep. Yep, you got it. Now hit it. Yep, you're through. Alright guys, we got the shocks back in. Make sure you put the cover on top of the shocks back on. We forgot and we had to take it back out and put it on. Well, we just dropped it down and slid it over the studs going up. Right now we have almost everything back to where it needs to be. These for us are a 21mm. The for the steering was a 22mm, and the bottom on both sides were 24mm. When you're taking this out, you also will need a Torx to hold the center while you use an open head wrench to unloosen it, or it's just going to rotate in itself. This is a what is this? T40. So let's see if I can get this, see if you can see this. T40. There you go. That's what it is. So you're gonna need this to hold there, and also to hold the top of the steering tie rod, and I believe that's it. And also, oh no, for the sway bar end link, you'll also need this to hold it in so it doesn't rotate. So make sure you have one of these, possibly kind of deep, long to reach. Now we just have the brake line. The brake line looks okay. We're gonna put that back in there like that. So the brake line's in. This looks okay. And there's this little piece of plastic that you have to hold in each side when you're taking it out. But let's pop that back in. And that's it. Whew. So you guys can see a better look of it. This thing's hot. This thing's hot. Now, technically, we also, the way we did it, you're supposed to get the axle out of the hub. We ended up taking it out of the transmission, front differential, whatever you want to call it. So you have to make sure you get that back in, and we also need to tighten the nut on the front. We haven't done that yet. As you can see, it's loose. I'm gonna have to check and see what the torque specs are, but we should be good. This was a 36, I believe. You're gonna have to check your workshop manual for that. I think ours was a 36 millimeter socket. We'll throw that on. You're gonna have to tighten it, loosen it, tighten it. A lot of these have multiple torquing steps. Like some of them, you have to torque to whatever it is, then back it off, and then torque again to a higher torque value, and then plus 45 degrees, 90 degrees. So this is really important, you guys, to get the workshop manual, because even ourselves didn't have all the torque specs. We had to look online to try to find everything, but it looks good. Everything fits in. If you were interested in the model number of the shock, let me just show it there. It has a picture of the Nürburgring, and yeah, nice little yellow shocks. Definitely a Bilstein color, as we all know. The springs were a pain in the butt, so make sure, I would say, get a heavy duty set of spring compressors. Maybe you get 2 sets, because you might need 2. You might have to clamp it on one side, squeeze it down, then use the other side to squeeze it down more, and then take the other set off. We actually had to readjust it a bunch of times to get it to where we needed to fit on the shock properly, so we can get the upper nut screwed in. If that's too much trouble, your best bet is probably to get both side shocks off, take it to a garage or something that has a heavy duty spring compressor. I mean, what are they gonna charge you? You know, 20-30 bucks to switch the springs over to the shocks, and then you can put it in all together once it's all, you know, back screwed together. So worst case, you got to take it someplace just to do that part, but you're still saving a ton of money. I don't know what they would charge to do this type of setup, but at least this will give you guys a good idea of what it takes to change the struts on the front of a 2010 ML350. Pretty much you just got to do the same thing on the other side. I think we're gonna call it quits, because it actually took us a long time just to get this side done and to figure out exactly how we're gonna do it. We're gonna jump over to the other side and do that one another day, but this pretty much gives you an idea and pretty much step by step of how to do it. One other thing is when we pulled everything out and dropped it down, we moved the bottom of the shock to the back of the car. That was the easiest way for us to get the shock out, and then just have someone on top to loosen it. This is definitely a two-person job. Whoever does it with one person is amazing, because this is definitely hard. Al, anything else you want to put in?
No, that's about it.
That's about it. All right, guys, I hope this was informative. I hope you guys figured out if this is something you want to tackle, or maybe it's not something you want to tackle. But it is really hot. It's like 100 degrees plus in this garage. I wish you guys the best. I hope everyone's being safe out there. If you're new to the channel, or you've been watching for a while and haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. It always does. It always helps the channel out and makes me want to, you know, see what type of content you guys like. We still have a lot more to do on this ML350. I think the next step is going to be upgrading these brakes to something a little better. I think we're already down to really close on the pads. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that with this light in the way. So brakes are definitely the next thing to do. So we'll catch you guys in the next video.